A little background on how I wound up here. When Brooks was organizing this event and he was sending out the request for people to volunteer for things that they were experts on, I figured I wasn't an expert on anything. I hadn't done this long enough to be an expert on KAP rigs, on radio control, on electronics, not even particularly funny. One thing that I thought that at least I might be able to do would be do an introduction on digital imaging. The first night we were going around kind of introducing ourselves and talking about how we first learned about KAP. And it seems that pretty much everybody came upon KAP, or at least started to refine their skills through contact they had with other KAPers on the internet. And the internet, of course, is driven by digital imagery. And that was really how I got involved in digital imagery. I remember my first pictures that I got back, probably not much unlike some of you guys. I got anxiously awaited my roll of film to come back from the, at that time, 2-day photo, and got a whole roll of grass. You know, and I like grass as much as the next guy, but a roll of grass was not what I was anticipating I was going to get. But the second roll came back, and actually there were some pictures that I thought were kind of fun and interesting. But there were people that I wanted to share those with that didn't live near me, or that I wasn't going to see for a while. And so my first inclination was to go to the folks that I work with that deal with graphics and stuff and say, hey, can you scan this for me so that I can send this around? And from there, I wanted to have the opportunity to do that myself and to experiment with things and to really, from my perspective, take that almost there shot, that close to what I was really happy with shot, and maybe make it something that was a little bit better. Something that I could really feel proud of, and something that I could share with the rest of the world. And it may not be the best picture in the world compared to some of those pictures out there, but it was my best picture, or the best picture from that role, or the best picture from that site I went to. And it was from that that I started to learn a little bit. And really, I'm self-taught. I'm an accountant. I don't know anything about photography, and I don't know anything about digital images really outside of what I've learned doing this tremendous hobby. I know that there's a lot of you guys out there that know way more than me about digital imagery. And I kind of hope that this discussion, this short discussion today, is going to be maybe even an opportunity for some of you that know way more than me to help me to introduce to some of the folks that I think there are some folks in this audience that haven't started to experiment with digital images and the value you can get from it. And so my mission today is to kind of introduce you to my perspective of digital images and some of the things that you can do with them that I think can make the best of your KAP pictures. And so that's where I want to go today. And please chime in if there's some things that you have different perspectives on or have some thoughts on. Really, digital images aren't an end to themselves. It's nice to get your camera, and for those of you who are fortunate enough to have your KAP rigs filled with digital cameras. I myself, I use a standard film camera, and but we need to think about, as we're going through this process, what we're going to use our images for, and it can really be a number of things. One thing is it can be a lot easier to store and archive our images digitally than it is on regular negative film. And I can speak to that from experience in that I lost 10 years of the first part of my marriage and the first 5 years of my children's lives to a flood. Had I had those images stored digitally, which I didn't, I would still have those today or would be able to reprint those. But I've lost those and lost that little piece of my life, so to speak. Had I been involved in digital imagery at that time, I might still have those today. But for me, from a perspective of kite aerial photography, what it allows me to do is to make some corrections to the not so perfect shots. The ones that are, the horizon doesn't quite match, or my contrast was off a little bit because I wasn't able to get the kite in the right position, so the sun was off, or maybe my color wasn't off. Of course, that wasn't anything I did. That's what the photo lab did when they did my film. And then, of course, cropping the picture to get that image right where I want. And then, of course, really, this is a visual hobby. And part of the fun of this is being able to share this with people. And I think that I've learned so much before I came here from the internet, and I've been able to share with other folks who have expressed an interest in this hobby through email by using digital images. And frankly, it's really convenient. I don't have to run down to the photo lab and say, take this negative and, I want it to move a little bit over to the left and hope that they get it right. I have full control over it, and I can do it what I want and how I want. And to me, that makes it worth it. Just a brief primer on digital images from a novice. Pixels are the little pieces of a digital image, for those who don't know. And kind of the way I look at it from my own perspective is that when we get a negative back, it's more like a slope. It's nice and smooth and everything. But when we're talking about digital images, it's more like a step. And we're dealing with those steps. And the smaller those steps, the more refined that picture is going to be. Of course, the other direction is that if we have big steps and we're looking at it closely, we can see those little squares. And those are our pixels. And then, of course, our image size is a function of a number of things, but primarily what we're thinking about is resolution, how clear that picture is, and that's going to be a function of the pixels and the size that we want to get that. That's why when we go to print one of Chris's images and pretend that it's our own, we go to print it, it doesn't look as good as if we had done it ourselves. But when we're thinking about our digital images, we need to think about, well, where are we going to use those images? We can get by with a much lower resolution picture on the internet because our screen is showing a much lower resolution than we would use in a print. Email, that depends on the use of what that email is. Maybe we're just going to show our friends what we've done. We don't need anything high resolution. And of course, our websites, opportunity for us to share with the whole world what we're doing. Kind of as an example, not a whole lot to look at if we took 3 by 2 pixels. It's not too interesting. But the advantage is that it doesn't take a lot of space. But as we increase our pixel size, we also increase the amount of space that we're taking in storage, but our image starts to come alive. So as I start to increase my pixels, I start to get something that's maybe a little bit more interesting to look at. But you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of change between that previous picture and the current one, because on this screen, we don't have a whole lot of resolution. So I'm wasting space in this situation. Similarly, if we take an image and we play with its size, we can increase its resolution. And that's really a function of our dots per inch, our pixels per inch. And so the right resolution really is going to depend on what we're going to do with the image. And there's really no universal image to deal with. It's forward thinking about what you're going to use that image for to determine what you want to do with it. From my perspective, I'm always thinking about what is going to be the final thing that I'm going to do with my images. What is going to be the thing that's going to use the most resolution, and that's what I plan for. And just for those of you who aren't aware, this is kind of an idea of the dots per inch that we need to be thinking of with respect to the different things that we're going to be dealing with using our digital images. So just a little formula about compensating for our size of our images. If we're going to be taking, for example, an image that is 3 inches, and we're going to want to put it on a printer where we need 150 dots per inch, well, we need to make sure that that we're going to be dealing with the proper amount of dots per inch to start with our original resolution, or we're going to wind up with a grainy image. And color depth is just a function of how many colors that we're using. And of course, we're dealing digitally, so we're dealing with zeros and ones, and we have a possibility of 24 bits for our color. And that's really a function of 8 bits for red, green, and blue. And that would produce millions of colors as an option that we could, possible colors that we could have in our image. And this is probably no secret about obtaining our images. We can either get them straight from our cameras, we can scan them, and when we're scanning, we have a choice. We have a flatbed scanner and film scanner options. I personally use a film scanner because I'm able to get a higher resolution off of that. My original flatbed scanner, I don't have a whole lot of room to play with when I make that scan. I find it very difficult to crop it and still have a sufficient resolution to be able to do anything beyond maybe putting it on my web page. And then, of course, there are services for folks who don't want to invest in the hardware or the software for scanners, although scanners have really gotten very inexpensive lately, where you can get pictures on a disk through your photo processing service. And then oftentimes those come with software to manipulate your images as well. And then just some thoughts about what format you want to save your images in. Traditionally, on the internet, we're using JPEG images, and those are wonderful for photographs. They do well typically if they're used for print applications if you don't use a lot of compression. But one of the cautions is that if you continue to resave a JPEG image, you're going to continue to lose some quality. GIF images are typically used for things that aren't photograph, and then TIFF images are what is a good format to use when you're playing with your images so you don't lose any of the resolution. And the other thing you need to keep in mind is your aspect ratio. If you want to print your image, you need to make sure that you're saving it in a format and in a size range that is going to be equal to whatever your image is going to be printed or on your web page, or that you want the final piece to turn out. But some of the things that you can do with it are where the fun comes in. From a cropping standpoint, and this is a chance for me to kind of show off some of my images, this is an image that I took when I was in Las Vegas, and I'd never been to Las Vegas before, and we lose a little bit on this screen. But I was fighting with the helicopters for the sightseers, and so I was a little nervous about taking pictures. But this one I kind of liked. I liked the mountains in the background, and I liked the clouds, but it was crooked. And so I was able to rotate it and then crop it so that I could get it to an image that I was happy with. I don't know how that turns out. Yeah, that looks better on the screen, but but this is an image that I liked the group of folks on the beach, but I wasn't particularly happy with the color and the contrast, so I played around with that a little bit and made it an image that I was a little bit happier with. And these are all very easy things to do with applications that are available for free and as shareware applications. And I've actually brought along some copies of discs for anybody who's interested of some applications for playing around with their images. This one's kind of a fun one for me. This is one winter shot I did of my house, and the top one you can see me down there in the driveway. And most of the time I don't mind me in the driveway, but through playing around with the image, I can take myself away. Don't have to worry about what color line I use or anything else. I just use the application to remove the parts that I don't want. You can do some fun things with this. With these things, you can add the shadows, kind of give it a 3D effect. You can play around with masks.
so an image can be enhanced a little bit, made a little bit more artistic. I don't know that I necessarily would go with the KAP California logo with that image, but kind of gives you an idea of some of the things you can do. And this is kind of a fun one. These were two images that I took of the downtown Aurora, where I live. The top image is the downtown area, and the bottom image is of a former Burlington and Northern Railroad house, a roundhouse where they used to repair the railroad engines, and it has some historic significance in my town. And it sat unused due to hazardous waste disposal for a long time until a group of people, including Walter Payton, got together to refurbish this and make it into a restaurant and banquet hall. I've always found the building quite attractive. But as I was looking through my pictures, I noticed, well, in that first picture, I see a little bit of the roundhouse in the bottom. What would happen if I brought those two pieces together? And now I did this completely by hand. This wasn't with any stitching program, so you can see where I cheated along the road there. If you look at the median, but I think I could do a much better job now that I've heard of some of these programs through some of the discussions earlier today. But I think it gives it a much more dramatic effect by bringing those two pictures together. And then printing your work, for those who have the luxury of color laser, that's a wonderful way to go. I use an inkjet printer and get really nice results with high enough resolution and good ink. And then online photo finishing, and there's a number of folks that do a great job. The only caution that you need to think about when you're using an inkjet printer is how long those pictures are going to last. You know, whether they're going to last you in 5 years before they start fading, or whether they're going to last longer. And then finally, just a brief discussion on organizing files. Probably like many of you, I'm starting to accumulate more digital files than I know what to do with. And there's a number of ways to store them. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is that whatever format that you use, it's very likely that that's going to be replaced sometime in the future. I originally started saving mine on my hard drive. Then I moved to floppy disks, and then zip disks, and now CDs. Who knows what the next technology is going to be? But I think that we're pretty safe with CDs for at least a couple more years. Another option, you can, how you actually organize those files, you can save them yourself. You can figure out a way to name them so you can figure them out under folders and file names. But there's some great software out there that really helps you to organize those files, and I have some of those for you to play with. It's like any other software. One size doesn't fit all, and you have to really experiment with them and find what works best for you. I find that something that allows you to see a thumbnail of your images as you're organizing them really helps a lot. Oftentimes you'll have different versions of the same file with similar names, and you forgot what you called it 3 months ago, even though 3 months ago you knew you'd remember. So those are great tools to have. And that's my brief introduction to digital images.